There we go. There I am. I think I was not in the right place, but I am now. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Great to have all of you all here. Let me know if you can hear me okay. But I see everybody's jumping on. It's great to have you all here on this Wednesday morning. We've got a lot to play around with, as you saw by my messy bead table in front of me. We've got a bunch of stuff to play around with today. And I thought that you guys would really like a broadcast on some of the different ways to close a wrap bracelet. It's one of the questions we get most often here at beadshop.com. So I thought that I would tackle that today. I've got some samples and stuff to share with you. So I think you're going to enjoy it. So, so that being said, let me get some coffee here. And I see that everyone's jumping on. We're broadcasting from on a lot of different platforms. Of course, our Beadshop platforms. We're over in the Great Bead Extravaganza. And of course, we are up on our YouTube channel. So if you do give our YouTube channel a like and a follow, it's a great time to subscribe to that. That way you don't miss any of the content that we create here, right here at beadshop.com. So I also wanted to mention today, let me jump over here. Of course, you can find us on all of our social media platforms. Follow us on our Instagram at beadshop.com. Of course, you can join our Facebook group called The Bead Table on Facebook. It's a great community of, 6,000 plus beaders strong, and it's great to have everybody over there chatting and being super helpful with bead questions. It's a great community there, so we'd love to have you join us. And of course, as I said earlier, you can subscribe and like us over at our YouTube channel at beadshop.com. Each one of your social media engagements means so much to us. It just helps get the word out to other bead lovers. So we're very appreciative of that. And of course, and I'll show this again at the end, but you can find everything that I'm going to talk about today on beadshop.com for information on the project and the products from this broadcast. And of course, sign up for our newsletter for the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products. And we've got some fun things coming down the pike as always for you. So that's what I've got. So let's jump in and take a look. I see just everybody jumping on. It's great to have everybody here as I look at everyone's comments. So thank you guys so much for supporting us. It's great to have you here. So I'm gonna move the camera angle here so you guys can see what's down in front of me. And let's get a jump start. This morning, as I was reviewing my emails, I got an email from our dear friend, Allie Morey. And Allie, I know you're probably watching this, so thank you so much. I was so busy, I didn't even have time to reply, but I'm going to share this really great idea that Allie had for extending a wrap bracelet. And so maybe we'll just start with that one. So what Allie said was, let me actually grab her email because it was perfect timing. She said, "Hey, Kate, I laughed this morning when I saw the newsletter. Not sure if you saw my post in the Facebook group on January 13th, but Faye challenged me to make an adjustable closure. So she came up with this, and surprisingly, it really does work. She says, just attach a lobster claw to the chain at your desired length and use the button loop as usual to pull on and take off." It's great. So let me show you the accompanying photo that she sent. Bear with me here just a second. And we'll start off with that. And here's the photo. So you can see what Allie made here. Here is a closure for a wrap bracelet. And you can see her wrap bracelet going off to the left. or her Tahoe bracelet, or, whatever bracelet she was creating. And she used that distressed end cap, the glue in. And can you see how that's a 1.5 millimeter leather, though you can use whatever it is you like for the leather. And I've got some here, so we'll talk about them in a minute. But she's got 4 lengths of the leather in there, and see how she has her chain connected, and it looks like just her chain connects into the cap. And then if you'll notice, the button loop that she made is also in one of those caps, and it's connected to one of those swivel clasps. And that clasp can go in along that chain at any point and just clasp in, and then that loop will go around the button. And I think it's a really ingenious, kind of a fun and whimsical way to create an extender. So if you run out of leather, or if you have leather break or whatever, that little cap that you see there kind of at the top left is a great way to just finish off your leather strands and then attach some chain. And that cute little mechanism that Allie made is a great one. So really fantastic, a fantastic way to think outside the box with that. So really super clever. You could also use it as a necklace extender as well. For sure, that chain could just go right onto the necklace. And again, you could, let me put that picture back up here for just a second. You could, at this portion here, I'm pointing with my pointer, but you guys can't see it, but where the loop is coming into that petite distressed end cap, instead of using that end cap, you could also maybe macrame, or you could add a little macrame around that loop. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of, adapt this, but it's really, I just think it's such a clever way to do it. That little extender, Allie, is just really charming. So thank you so much. As always, Allie Mori, you are right on the ball. So let me show you some other ideas for that, because a lot of times when you guys are creating your wrap bracelets, once in a while, you have leather break or something happens, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the end of the world because something happens to your leather. So here's some different ways that you can kind of, recover from those little mishaps. We all get them. We all have them. So I don't want you to feel alone in that. It happens to the best of us for sure. But hopefully today I'll share some good creative solutions with you. So first I'm going to start by looking at those distressed end caps that I've got here. Let me get a little bit closer to these guys, and you can see the petite distressed and the regular distressed end caps. I've got them here, and the smaller ones will accommodate 2 strands, and I'm going to cut a little piece of this off so it's easier to see, like Allie made with that loop. And maybe I'll just make a small loop here. If you are making one of those extenders right here, you would just have to figure out the length of your leather, which that looks about right. Plus, you want to make sure that you have enough to go into your clasp. So I'm going to cut it there. I'm going to even these out. I'll put this in the end cap, and then I'll kind of hold it a little bit, and I'll make sure, see how that's a little bit big? We don't want it to come out. So I'm going to just cut maybe, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch or so off of that. Cut it gradually so it fits. And then that looks good. It looks like I can just cut off maybe it's 1/4 of an inch that I want to cut. There we go. So it's a total of 1/4 of an inch there. That was about 1/8 of an inch that I just cut off. So here this is, and yeah, there we go. See how that fits in really nicely? You don't want it to be so tight that it's going to pull out here from this end cap, but you want it, and you don't want it to be so loose that it's just going to fall out. Okay, so the end, the depth inside this petite distressed end cap, this I would say is about 1/4 of an inch or so. Let me see if I can get my, I should have my calipers here, but I was measuring some other things so with it, so I'll just use my tape measure. It's actually about 3/8 of an inch, just shy of 1/4, about 3/8 right here. Okay, so what you would do then is you'd get your zap glue and you just glue this in. And then what Allie did was she connected a loop, a lobster claw with a loop with a jump ring there. And then that's your little extender. And this will come in handy for all kinds of applications, right? Not just wrap bracelets. So it's great. You can see here also with, this is Dria's. You may remember when we did those mask lanyards, lariats. This is one of Dria's that she did where she did the closure here, connected it to one of those hammered components, and then this clasps right onto your mask lanyard, right? Well, you could also do the same thing with, if you don't, you can reverse this out and connect this to that loop. And then on this side, you could connect your button. I wonder if this would even just go in. It would. It almost does. I would connect a loop to this button. So let me do that. A jump ring. I don't know why I'm calling them loops this morning. They're jump rings. I guess because they're round. But this will open. So it's a good way to make kind of an instant wrap bracelet out of anything, really. Right? I like to repurpose and have multiple uses for things, layer up your necklaces and all that kind of fun stuff. So this is, I think, a 6mm jump ring that I put on here. And then you can see, let me attach it and then I'll turn it over. So you can see it. So see how that connects there? And then this would just connect in like so. And obviously I haven't glued it, so I'm just mocking this up at the moment. But see how that all fits together? There we go. Just like that. So it's a fun way to connect other things. So that's one way you could do it. So thank you, Ellie, so much for sending in that tip. It really fostered a lot of creative juices flowing this morning. So I also wanted to show you how you might just start your clasp, your piece with this. Again, you could use that jump ring if you wanted, and you could, or you could just create a little loop. I'm actually going to make a small, what we call our trails end loop. Here's just a small piece of leather. I'm going to go ahead and make a trails end loop with this. Janice is asking me if I would crimp this distressed end cap after I glue it. I don't think I would. I mean, you could, but see, when I put these ends in, they're a nice tight fit. They do crimp like our the Evolve and crimp tubes that we carry. They're the barrel crimps that we use in our Tahoe projects and a lot of other things as well. And we flatten them down and crimp them down. You could crimp this. I would glue it first, though, and if you are going to crimp it, I'd glue it pretty quickly after gluing so that you don't break that glue seal. But you definitely could, but it's nice and tight in there too. So I think it would hold. That's the 1.5mm. I've got some 2mm here. Let me just show you how the 2mm looks in it. It also fits. It's a little bit of a tighter fit. So can you see that there? It's a little bit tighter. So with the 1.5mm, if you want to give it just a little bit of a hug to close it, you can. I wouldn't smash it down because I don't think you want to lose the really nice rounded finished end look of this cap. Okay, so that figure eight, or again, what we call this the trails end closure because Janice used it in her project called Trails End. But I'm going to make a small one. This is just a little figure eight, and I've used just a scrap of leather here that I pulled out of the leather scrap bag. And so I'm going to make that 8 with my leather, and this is 1.5 millimeter, though you could use 1 millimeter all the way up to 2, whatever floats your boat. And I'm going to go ahead and I grabbed, because we had some sitting there and I like the look of it with the leather. This is the Irish wax linen. And so I'm going to lay this down and make a little bit of a loop. We have a nice skill builder on the on how to do the silk wrap here, but I'll show you the steps just real quick so you can see it. Sorry, I was distracted by reading all of the comments on the screen. Sorry about that. So I just make my loop here, and I don't know, it's just a short little, maybe this is about an inch or a little bit more. And we've got the end that loops back. And then this long end, I'm going to come down and I'm going to wrap everything with it. This figure 8 that I've got, plus the tail of this loop. And that first wrap that I make, and I wrap around everything, I'm going to do a couple of wraps, then I'll move my hand so you can see it. See how this is enclosing everything, those wraps there. And then I can switch hands and I'll continue to wrap. Now I'm wrapping down towards the loop of that Irish wax linen. And I also want to make these loops, I don't know, maybe I want to make them kind of even today. So I'm doing a silk wrap maybe that's a little bit longer, but you can see the tails of my leather coming out there. And one of these loops maybe is a little bit shorter and one of these is a little bit bigger, but that's fine. I don't mind the asymmetry, especially if we're going to attach a clasp or something into this side. I want a little bit more room so I have movement. So see how I brought my Irish wax linen through that loop, just through, you know, in the same direction of where I was wrapping. And now with my other hand, my right hand, I'm going to pull down and see how that loop is getting smaller. And as that loop that's underneath my wraps gets smaller, it's going to grab the piece of Irish wax linen. And if you're having trouble grabbing onto it, you can also grab kind of close with your pliers and see how it just sneaks right under the wrapping. And I'm going to stop when I can feel that little knot or that little, you know, that little grab. I can feel it about in the middle of my wrapping there. And then I'm going to pull on both sides of my silk wrap to make sure everything is nice and tight. And I really, can you see how nice that wrapping with the Irish wax linen, see how nice that looks? It's just nice and kind of tight and even and clean. So, and it has kind of a leather look to it. I also sometimes do this wrap with 0.5 millimeter leather, but I love it in the Irish wax linen because the linen is so sticky and really is nice. So I'm going to clip this away. I don't need any glue. It's not going to go anywhere because the connection of that knot, the closure, is down in the center. And now I'm just going to come in with my cutters, my wire clippers here, and I'm going to give these a little bit of an angle cut. I could cut it right up next to the wrap. I could do that too. But you're going to see a little bit of that opening. So I'm just going to kind of angle cut it so it looks kind of nice. And then this end will darken up pretty quickly, but you could also get like a little marker, a permanent marker in brown or gray, and give it a little dot there if you want, if you don't want to see the leather, the undyed leather on the interior. It doesn't bother me though, because it's going to darken pretty quickly. So can you see how there's my little trails end loop? So this is great for extending, like let's say that you've been making your wrap bracelet, you've been, you know, making, and then all of a sudden a piece of leather breaks, or you've run out of leather, or you don't want to add leather or whatever. You could simply just, you know, finish it off, close it off, and glue the ends of the leather into one of these distressed end caps. Can you see what I mean here? I'm just using the sample of Drea's as an example. but you close it in, and then you could just connect this using a jump ring this way. It would be good. And then here you could continue on. You could attach another piece and continue on with more wrap bracelet. You could attach chain with another jump ring here. You could do all kinds of things. This probably also is long enough. It's actually a little too big, but this could also be the closure through a button like this as well. Okay. So, but if I were starting this like that, I could, again, just attach it with a jump ring here, or when you are doing your figure 8 wrap, you could put the end cap in there, right? And then do your wrap like so. Okay, just like that. So it just depends on what you like there. Now, the other thing that you could make or you could do with an extender, a lot of times when you're finishing off your piece, and especially if you're selling your work and you want it to be kind of adjustable, or you're not really sure the length that you need, you could, instead of ending with one loop right here or one knotted off loop, you could do 2 loops, right? A double button loop, and then people could either put their button in the second loop or the first loop here. And the way you would do that, and I'm going to get a longer piece of leather here, is you would simply, I'm going to go ahead and just use, let's pretend that our wrap bracelet is in here, in that end. And so you could macrame or knot or whatever you wanted to do. This one I'm just going to knot at the end, or silk wrap. Maybe I'll silk wrap it so it'll have a nice little finish to it, and so I won't get my knots mixed up. It'll be easier for you to see. So let me get my clippers. Silk wrapping doesn't take any time at all, and it's such a nice closure, faster than macrameing, I feel. So this will go around. There we go. And I'll just give it, I don't know, maybe 6 wraps or so around. Make sure that when you're wrapping, it's nice and tight, that your wraps are one next to the other, that they're not overlapping or gapping. I'll pull that through. You want to tighten up that final wrap before you pull the thread underneath your wrapping there. There we go. I can feel it, that it's nice and tight there. Pull it, and then I'll clip it. And this one here. Okay, so now you're going to visualize with me here that our wrap is coming out here, right, from there. Now, what you would do with your button is to make this, and I'm going to, make sure that's not connected. To make sure that your button loop fits, I kind of hold it across my button this way. I hold the leather across, and I will just kind of mark it with my fingers and make that overhand loop like so. And then as I tighten it down, before I completely tighten it, I want to make sure that it still fits in my button. It's a little bit, it grew just a little bit in size, so I'm going to walk it down just a hair. And I also want to make sure when I tie my knots in the leather, I want to make sure that my knot isn't all twisted. So I took a moment to kind of look and see where the legs of the leather were crossing each other in that knot. And then I just kind of fixed it, uncrossed them. So it's a nice, clean, look at how nice that knot looks if it's not twisted, if the strands of leather aren't twisted. And then I'll double check it. Yep, that fits just fine, because again, this leather will stretch a bit. So having it a little on the snug side isn't a bad idea. Then you'll come down and you'll tie your second one. Again, trying not to cross my strands of leather, but sometimes it's inevitable and you just have to, before you tighten the knot, you kind of have to move your strands around. There we go. So nothing is crossing over. It just makes, like I said, for a nicer, flatter knot. There we go. And that looks just a hair large. So I'll walk that down just a touch. See how it wants to cross right there? It doesn't look as pretty. So I'm the boss of this leather, so I'm going to tell it where I want it to sit. Jump that one over, and then these need to be reversed over. There we go. That looks much nicer, flatter. That's just an overhand knot there. And let's double check before I tighten everything. But yep, that looks right. And tighten it up. Okay. So you can see I've done my silk wrap here at the end. Right. I like the way a knot looks in a button closure. I think it looks nice, but you could do macrame or a silk wrap instead. The little tails, you could put little beads on if you wanted and tie a little knot. So I'm just going to do that here and do that here. And I don't make them even. I'll make one a little bit longer and one a little bit shorter. There we go. And so then when your customer tries these on, they can either use this loop here, but if they had to use the second loop, then they could right here. If, let's say that you're selling at a trade show or you're doing, or making a gift, or this is for someone in person, and then this loop works nicely, you could just come in and clip right here to clip that spare loop off. Okay, so here's that loop there, and then we've got our little figure eight, our trail's end there as well. We also have some of these rectangle ends. They're larger, and they're called the rounded loop ends. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a comparison with all of these guys to just show you how the leather looked in them. These big ones here are great. This opening will accommodate a whole bunch of leather across. I'm just going to get a bunch here. Here's 4. Let me open or bring this up a little bit higher and even all those down. And so you can see that 4 there. I can probably get at least maybe 6, maybe more than that. So if you're making, I don't know, a multiple strand leather bracelet, there's all kinds of interesting design ideas that can happen here. I can probably even get one more of those leather strands in there. Okay. So, but this right now across is 2, 4, and 6. So let's see with the other rounded square. I think I'll probably be able, and this is 1.5 millimeter leather that I'm using, kind of the middle of the road. So this I can get in, can I squeeze that 4th one in? 3 go in really, really well here. Whoops. I think 4 might be just a hair too much. So 3 strands, there we go, right there. And then this one here, the regular distressed end cap, 4 strands goes in there perfectly, right? And then for this smaller one, I think 3 are too many. So 2 of those 1.5 millimeter, you still have a little bit of room there, but 2 are perfect for that. Okay, so that's kind of the rundown on the sizes of all of these guys. So 6, 4, 3, and 2 strands of the 1.5 millimeter. Okay. Janice is asking if I would use any glue on these knotted ends. I wouldn't. It's nice and tight, and the glue has a tendency, I think, to darken the leather. So I wouldn't. This is, or not Janice, but Sharon asked that. I think that the leather is tight enough here. And again, you know, if you wanted to add just a little drop of glue inside before you tighten it, you could. But I'm happy with, I'm confident that those won't come apart. I'm happy with those. Donna had a question, and Donna G had one, and it's a good one. Is there any way to shorten a wrap even if you've measured 2 or 3 times? So I would say, you know, instead of, it depends on how much you have to shorten it, Donna, right? If you need to shorten it enough, let me get this sample of Dria's back here, because I'm going to show you how to glue this anyway. So this is a good one to have. This leather got cut here, and so I need to glue it back together. So I'm going to show you that. But let's say that this was too long, right? And we wanted to shorten it. Depending on how much you have as a closure, right? How much leather you have left. If you can pick things out and take it out and then have enough leather at the top to reattach your button and macrame and all that kind of stuff here, then you could do that, right? But if your leather, or if your piece is too long by maybe just like a button length or something like this, what I would do is I'd add another wrap, and I'd make it longer rather than shorter. And you could do just a thin wrap of something that was really simple. Like I just had this piece of chain sitting here. So you could add a piece of chain or add a piece of kimono cord, or you could use that figure 8 that I made, right, like this, and connect another short piece of laddering or chain or something like that. Because depending on your wrist measurement, my wrist measurement is 6.5 inches. So I like my wraps door to door to be just shy of 7 inches. So that's not that long when you consider, you know, the length of the closure and of the button. So if I measure what I call door to door from here down to here, that's about 7 inches. So if I put in one of those loops, my figure 8 loops, and maybe one of these crimps here like this, then I really, and maybe this is here, so I really have like only 4 inches of beading to add in. So you could do another short wrap or something else in that 4 inches to make it look kind of interesting. So that's probably how I would tackle that, right? Okay, so this piece of Dria's, and it's something that we're always kind of talking about and doing the splice. And so this is the button that goes in it right here. And so let's say that also like this, let's say that something happened to your loop before I even do that. If something happened to your loop, I would trim it down, and you could just connect, it would be one of these petite ones because they're smaller. I would just connect this loop end right onto that and then connect that to your button with a jump ring, right? So, so that's a way to fix it. Or you could do the splice glue that we've done in the past. Usually if we splice, I like to do a little bit of macrame over the top, but I'll show you how I start that, that gluing. So here is my button. Here's everything. And you can see I've got a nice clean slice like this, right? And so that's going to glue together. So let me get my toothpick and my little baggie and my Zap glue. And we have this also as we call this Allie's splice. Whenever we have to splice leather, or if we want to end with a super clean loop, we would bring this loop back through like this, and then we'd macrame over the top of it. But I'm just going to go ahead and glue this. This is something, and this I'm just doing to show you. I would definitely want to macrame over the top of this. So this might be a little short, though after I glue it, and I'm going to hold it there, I'm going to try not to get a lot of glue on my fingers. What I could also have done is omit the button, as I said, and put a ring or something in there, but let's go ahead and let that sit there for a moment. There is room, and see that Zap really sets up quickly. There is room to come in to add a little more macrame cord and to come in and macrame over that. There's still, that loop was pretty generous, so I could repair it that way. Okay, but I'm just going to let that sit for the moment. Take a little bit of that spare glue away, but that's on the road to be spliced. Okay, so I'm going to put that to the side. Okay, so we've got that splice. We did this figure 8. We did this guy here. I think there was one more thing that I wanted to share with you guys. Let me see. Do I have it? Let me grab this, because this is something else that I was thinking of. Now, this closure, this is, you guys may remember this one from Janice's Zen of, or this wasn't the Zen of Fishing. We'll have to look it up, which project it is. I just had it here on the wall and I was thinking about it earlier. But this is also a great way to close. And you could, I think sometimes it's hard when you start at the button side of something that you're doing. It's maybe a little bit easier sometimes to start at the loop. Traditionally, when we make a wrap bracelet, right, we start at the button end first and we finish with the loop, right? And so that's one of the reasons why Allie does that splice, because she does the splice, macrames over the top, and then that's where she starts, right? So with something like this, if you do a macrame, and let's pretend, I mean, this could be with anything, you know, but let's pretend that also if this is a wrap bracelet here, you would start it by, and I'll move this over. So I would start it here at this end. And I have my little, I'm just going to put that right onto my box there. And whatever you're doing your wrap bracelet with, I'm going to grab some, this is regular Ceylon that I had sitting here on my bench. And Janice said that this one is called Branching Out, this project, which I love. And it also shows you that the techniques that you learn in doing wrap bracelets, you can easily translate those over to necklaces or other types of your designs, right? So there we go. this is a little, that's not what I want to do. I want it to be a little tighter in there. There we go. That's better. Go over here. So I'm just going to do a little bit of macrame here just to get myself a little bit of space there. And we have a really good, really great basic macrame knot stitch. But essentially what I'm doing here, we have it in our skill builders on beadshop.com. What I'm doing here is I'm using regular Ceylon, and I'm just doing a series of back and forth macrame knots to create that loop up at the top. Okay, so there's that right there. Okay, and so here, just like with Dria's button, I'll show this one. That's how Dria started this one, right? And she did traditional laddering where she went from both sides and went through her beads, right? If you were doing infinity, you could have strung a needle with some thinner thread, buried that tail underneath your macrame there, and then used it for the infinity stitch. But I just wanted to show you here how you could start with a loop here. Now, I did this pretty quickly and I didn't measure with a button. I kind of held the button size in my brain, so hopefully that fits. And yeah, it does. You would have to kind of measure and see where you'd start your loop. But that's how you would start if you were starting from the loop side here. Okay, and then you would add your beads or do whatever it is that you would do. And then when you come around to this side, okay, that's when you could get kind of creative with your closures. You kind of have to have an idea of what you're going to do with this, okay, so that you make the loop the correct size. Of course, you could come back through. I'm just going to go ahead and clip these ends a little bit shorter just so they're not in my way. Obviously, I would have laddered with those, or I would have glued and thread burned those down or whatever. So you get that. You get that idea. But when I would add a button, if I were adding a button to the other side, I'm going to remove this jump ring because I could go through the jump ring if I wanted, but it's a little floppy for me to control. So let me take it off here for a moment. This is our sunflower button, the copper sunflower button, which I just love. I think it's just a happy closure. So this would go through. I've got 2mm leather here, which, oh, it's a little small for that button. So I didn't even check the button shank. So what you could do to check, I'll do that angle cutting with the leather because that leather end was a little raggedy. And see, there we go. It will go through just fine. So again, let's pretend this is our real long bracelet. And then this is our bracelet here. And then it would come around and you would do that splicing, glue splice like I did earlier. So I'd clip it here at an angle, and I'd clip it there at an angle. Maybe a little further down, because you want enough room to be able to macrame over that, right? So I'd glue that splice together. Then I'd macrame over the whole thing. Macrame, macrame, macrame. Okay, something like that. Or you could, let's say that you had a bead that had a nice big hole in it. You could put that bead over these two strands of leather and then tie a knot on the other side of it. And then that bead would act as your clasp. And you could have, you know, just these tails kind of hanging out and maybe knotted at the end or something like that. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of play around with that closure. But I really love the way this looks, especially with the thread and the dangles on the end. You could also, let's say that you have come up at the end here, right? And maybe this is a wrap bracelet. right? And so you've laddered, all of this is laddered on the inside, okay? And you have a couple of strands of your seal-on. What you could do is you could bring all of this together and macrame, close off these ends like that, and then have the seal-on protrude out the end and put your button on there. So you have kind of these dangles like this too. That would also work. I think when you're playing around and you're designing, one of the things I want to recommend is playing around with things like this and making your little samples. So you have like your little sample board here, so you remember how to do these pieces. Like with this, I have no emotional connection to these closures, right? I'm totally riffing, totally going off the cuff with some ideas. And I think that sometimes that's when some of your best ideas are born, when you're not trying to create on the piece that you're actually making, but using some of the scraps that you might have, your little leather scraps, your scraps of wax linen, some of the little findings and things that you have in your stash that way. Then you won't have to be so emotionally invested, and you won't be afraid of screwing up, right? And so then you can, put these in little baggies or whatever, put them up on your inspiration board in your studio, and then you'll remember, oh, right, I know about that closure. Oh, right, I know that I can start from my loop instead of my button end, or, oh, this figure 8 little trails end is a great way to work. So those are just ideas, I think, that'll kind of forward your design abilities. And remember, if you use it on a bracelet, you can also probably use it on your necklace. Let me also mock up that little one that Allie did here. So we have, so you guys can screenshot this if you want as an idea. Let me do this. And yeah, and someone also commented, great tip, there won't be as many tears, right? LOL, right? And that's really true. I think that when you're super emotionally invested in your piece, sometimes, when you screw it up or you're like right at the end, you're like, oh, that's it. I am done for the day, right? But if you kind of have a plan and you're planning things out a little bit, or just a little bit of practicing, if you screw up, who cares? It's just a little practice piece, right? So there you go. There's your little grouping of pieces here. So, and let me also get the chain out. So this is our circle back chain. I might use a chain that's a little bit heavier, like Rustico, but you would connect it there with that jump ring like Allie did. You can connect it to chain, or you can just connect your chain. This would just be a nice extender onto chain there. Okay, so that's it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. So hopefully this will, I don't know, spark some creativity in your pieces. I'm looking for one more. Oh, here's one that I had that I did earlier. I attached a clasp to. That one was just hanging around. And you can see this is done with 2mm and Chinese knotting cord, which I like. And I'm looking for just one last little, if there's anything else I want to share with you guys. Oh, let me show you this one. This is, I think this was the one I did called Year-End Wrap, maybe. And it's a great way to just take a look at this little bit of an extender like this. You can see I've used one of these carved pieces that we carry, and then I wire wrapped it this to this keyholes chain, which is nice. And I've also, you could incorporate pieces like this. This is on soft flex here, and then I just wire wrap to that that wire guard that I have here. So there's all kinds of ways to connect and extend, but I really like how this chain looks in it. So that, getting back to that question of Donna's, what if your wrap is too short? Well, adding just a nice length of chain that wraps all the way around, I think looks really pretty as well. So hopefully this added some good ideas into your arsenal there. It's always fun. Now I want to go make a whole bunch of wrap bracelets because they're so fun to do. They're really, really fun. Let me pull up. I want to pull up that photo of Allie. Some of you joined us a little bit later, so I want to pull up that photo so you guys can see that real quick. That is Allie's that she did, and she used that larger one. And if you look at that bracelet that she's done, you can see that it's actually not a wrap. It might be a wrap, but it's a little bit of a different design. So you could use that smaller one in place of that larger distressed cap. Whatever floats your boat. But it was thank you, Allie, so much. She always comes through with kind of a fun little closure, a really fun one for us to play around with. And so speaking of our Allie, let me click back over here and let me remove that one and I will come up and see you. Next week, we have a really fantastic live, and there's going to be more of kind of this extender stuff on next week's show. Allie has sent us six Super Duo bracelets that are really incredible. There's some different closures with we also have the magnetic closure I'm going to share with you, another great way to extend, or if you can't really use button closures, a magnetic clasp is a great way to go with it. But we're going to be doing Super Duo wraps, and she's sent in 6 styles, 6. And she has a great handout that accompanies that. So that's what we're going to be doing on our next live broadcast next Wednesday. So this month for Free Tip Friday, I'm going to be out on Free Tip Friday for the rest of the month, taking those Fridays off. But Janice and I will be back the first Friday of next month for Bead Doctor. So the live broadcast for the rest of this month for April will be Allie. I'll have her great things on next week. And then the following week, I've got an amazing surprise from Janice that she has been working on for several months. You guys are really, really going to love it. So that's what I've got going on there. So I also wanted to let you guys know that today, in honor of all of this wrap bracelet business, we have a great sale on our leather cord today. So today, if you're watching this live, it's April 14th. And if you go to beadshop.com, you will see that all of our leather is marked down 10%. So you can stack it with you if you're a member of our VIB reward system, very important beader, and you have a reward that you want to use. You combine it with that, or you can combine it with our regular coupon code, which for this month depends on how much you spend, but you can get 10, 15, or 20% off, depending on the amount that you spend. But all leather is marked down 10%. So you can really stash build for your leather today. And then, of course, as always, you guys, you can go to beadshop.com for information on all of our project and products from this broadcast. Take a look at all of our leather wraps. We've got so many really great skill builders. If you go in under learning, look at our skill builders, and if you're a wrap bracelet novice, you will be a seasoned professional in no time. And if you make a lot of wrap bracelets already, a good peruse through those files will certainly refresh some of your skills. Also, to be notified for our upcoming broadcasts and Janice's really epic project at the end of the month, make sure that you sign up for our newsletter for the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products that we have. You guys are gonna love what's coming up at the end of the month for sure. So let's see if there's any final questions here. I don't see any here. Looks good. This one, the bracelet with the carved piece that I have here, I think this one was called Year-End Wrap, I think, Darlene. I I think it was, but essentially, and I'll show it to you in its entirety before I sign off, because it is a good one to spark some creativity. Let me change back to this camera here so you guys can see it. This also makes a really great necklace as well, but you can see, I'll walk you through it. Some of these carved pieces were from so long ago, they weren't limited, but we do carry a bunch of fun carved pieces in our Vintage Finds collection. So you can, or this could be a disc, or I don't know, a button with holes, or whatever you might want to play around with. But here's one length of 4mm fire polish there. Then I go into a length of 6mm fire polish here, and this is all strung on soft flex wire like it's a little necklace, right? Then I wire wrapped and connected this chain, the keyholes chain, and then I wire wrapped that keyholes chain with these 2 Saturn beads, and then used this clasp to close. So if it wraps around the wrist, and here, I'm going to go around, and then I'll just come in and I will connect it up like this. So it's a great layering piece. You can do this, there we go. And then this carved piece just kind of goes where it goes, right? So this actually wraps around 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you would lengthen it or shorten it in the chain selection or the chain section. Okay. But again, this carved, we've got some different carved ones, or you can, use a ring. We've got a lot of great ring components that you can use instead. So this is a great one, as I like to say, for choose your own adventure. But I like the look of the simple fire polish, the 4 and the 6mm, just with some little spacers in it, and then that keyholes chain. So that's it there. That's it for that wrap. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a good overview of that one. All right, everybody. Well, that will do it for me for today. Thank you again so much for joining us, and thank you for your likes and your support and your shares. With this, we would love it for you to go to our YouTube channel, especially if you're watching on YouTube right now. Take a moment and hit that subscribe and like button so you'll always be notified when we go live. So thanks again, everybody. I will see you next Wednesday with those, count them, 6 samples from Ali Mori. It'll be a super duo extravaganza. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe. And I will see you next week with all of those great projects. Talk to everybody soon. Bye, everybody.